their jurisdictions and beyond boundaries. This is where, when I was talking about taking responsibility and engaging in the communities beyond your club members, basically you are also ambassadors of the university, but also ambassadors of service and volunteering, an institution that takes, or places high importance on being engaged and service, which I think is critical. Put a heavy emphasis on the intangibles of vision, values, and motivation. That quote from Father Hesburgh, I think, is a perfect example of that. Have the political skill to cope with the conflicting requirements of multiple constituencies. Well, I'm sure you have that in your club meetings. I'm sure whether it be on the global level here or in your local clubs, not everybody's going to agree on things. And how do you maneuver through that? That's very critical. And maneuver through it so everybody feels good about whatever the outcome is, even though some of the people didn't get it the way that they wanted to be. And lastly, think in terms of renewal. And even with this organization here, I learned that if you're, 30 board members, that you have 10 new ones that are coming off, and was very impressed with your whole transition plan of the board here at this level. But I also think that renewal on the local level is critical, because we're in a different world this day, and I'd be very curious to see some of your demographic numbers versus others. But we have this challenging situation where, and we're seeing a lot of it generationally issue. I mean, I worked for one company for 30 years. Most people today would look at me as I'm crazy. Today, if you look at generations that are more 3 to 5 years off to other opportunities, the affinity, the loyalty is changing, not only from employee to employer, but employer to employee. So it's a very different world. If you look at some of the philanthropic studies that have been done on giving to universities, you're finding that some of the newer graduates are less likely to give to their alma mater than people our age are, which is disturbing. So I think this is where a structure like this, I mean, you all and we all have a real opportunity is how do we renew and how do we rejuvenate and get more people to be involved in our clubs. I mean, I'm sure that you have people who might pay dues to your local club, but you never see them. How do you get them engaged, or how do you get those who don't pay those dues to say, hey, I want this to add value? And I want to read to you something. Sam Palazzolo, anybody know who he is? He's a recently retired CEO of IBM. He had 4 principles for running IBM, but I think these 4 principles can apply to you at your local club, or really any of us in anything that we're doing. One is, why would somebody spend their money with you? What is unique about you? And I think that goes back to paying dues. and it's, with all the various opportunities and whatever, what value does a club bring to the person who is paying dues? And so much of it these days, we have to look at what is that value proposition. Why would somebody work for you? Again, you could change that to, why would somebody be a member of your club? Why would society allow you to operate in their defined geography and their country? Interesting societal issues, how universities fit in to societies, how this university is connected, with communities of faith and those links. a lot of interesting dynamics going there when you're looking at kind of those license to operate issues. And why would somebody invest their money with you? And that you can, and that, money, their time, their influence, etc. Again, these are principles that he used for running IBM, but I find they really resonate with me with my one-person company, or with the boards that I sit on, and helping these organizations to be more effective. Well, I want to leave a few minutes for us to have a discussion, but first of all, I did want to call out that I think it's so appropriate that we are having this meeting here this week. How many of you know what this week is in the volunteerism world? Excellent. National Volunteer Week. Perfect. How many people know what weekend this is with youth volunteering? Global Youth Service Day. How many people know what tomorrow is? I'm going to pick on Manny. Oh, yes, okay. Yes, it is not Cardinal and Gold Day. But, yes, but besides Blue and Gold Day, it's Earth Day. And of course, I'm picking on Manny because I've known Manny for about 20 years and Disney's top environmental lawyer. But tomorrow is Earth Day. So I mean, it's an interesting time that you're all here together at this time because really we're all about service. That's what universities are about. It's about taking our youth, providing them with the education necessary to go out in the world to be successful for themselves, their families, to serve others and make this a much better world than it is. So we have about 15 minutes. Would love to have a discussion with you about anything that might have piqued your interest, any issues regarding leadership or volunteerism. Yes, we have microphones set up. I love it that we have somebody who's jumping up. Please.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't think your mic is on.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can.
All right, my name is Chris Beckstrom from the South Jersey Club, and I thought your pyramid, your volunteering pyramid was very interesting, something I've thought about. And I wondered if you could maybe talk a little bit more about, to me, which is really that sweet spot of that skilled volunteering and the pro bono service. Because we have people who go out and they paint and landscape and do the gardening and things like that. I talked to about the Ronald McDonald House, and they said there's a 1-year wait just to be able to serve a dinner there. So there's the supply, as you talked about it, but matching it up with where the demand really is. And there is definitely a need and a demand. And if you could talk maybe about how to find those things and that are to really meet that demand.
Great question. There are a lot of resources in communities. Early on, I mentioned about the 250 volunteer centers, hands-on affiliates across the country. That is a good way of finding opportunities of organizations that need additional help. There are groups, there's one called Board Source, which is an organization that works to help organizations have more effective boards of directors, but that can also be a good connection. Working with local chambers of commerces, oftentimes cities have associations of nonprofits, people that you know who are on the boards of organizations might look at their work in a different way. Say like with strategic planning, you might be a part of a company like an Accenture or a Deloitte or really anybody who has that strategic planning experience, and you could pull other people in to help with that versus more of an unguided plan on creating a strategic plan. So there's a lot of different resources. I can't really send you to one areas. Taproot, who the slides were created by, only operate in 5 cities across the U.S. And that is what Taproot does, which I love their model, is there's 2 pieces of it. So let's use that HR component. Or example that I used earlier. They'll either work with one company to work with one nonprofit where they'll pull experts in HR to then work with this nonprofit for a 6-month period to create a plan for them, or they'll work with a variety of different companies to put together a team to go in. So that's very much a team approach. Or it can be more of a individual one-on-one type of work. Lawyers have been doing pro bono work for a long time. It's a newer concept for the other disciplines within the business management world. Does that kind of help? I wish I could say, go to this website, put in your zip code, this is going to tell you what opportunities there are, and not quite there yet like a lot of the other volunteer opportunities. What else? Yes?
You mentioned about the decline in service and the expectation that government or another entity will provide, and I don't have to be self-sufficient. How do you envision reversing that trend?
Well, one way I think is going to, did you all hear the question? No? Okay, the question was, with the volunteer rate at being 26%, but yet with government services being reduced, how are we going to get more people to step up to the plate? I think part of it is people will get fed up and will say, okay, we need to do something, and it'll just happen naturally. And then the other way is people like you all who are out in your local communities and trying to encourage more people to volunteer. I think one of the best ways to increase volunteering is ask for help. Because whether it's you're asking for help within your club members, you're going out in the community, I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, it's like, well, I would help with this, but no one ever asked me. Well, we all need to do a better job of asking, and I think that'll be clear. So how do we get people to, go through their neighborhoods, go where they have people, it's like, join me, let's try and do this, let's help on this issue.
I'm John Hoffman from the Notre Dame Senior Alumni, and one of our primary missions is engaging people in volunteer service. I learn best by examples, so perhaps you could share with us some examples of how you, when you're at Disney, got people willing to volunteer and then got them placed in good volunteer situations. It seems from reading your biography that this is one of your strengths. So share some of your stories with us.
Okay, very good. Love your last name. And you said senior volunteers?
Senior Alumni Association, yes.
Oh, which is great. There are programs such as RSVP, Retired Senior Volunteer Program, which has been around forever. But what I also think is interesting about the senior area is a movement with Encore Careers, which is a way of when people like me who would retire some point and I could be part of this, where I would actually go in and work with nonprofits more in the same vein as the pro bono work that we were talking about, in using professional expertise to help organizations. So I know that wasn't your question, but I think seniors, when we look at the retiring baby boom generation, it's a huge opportunity to get the baby boom generation to be engaged in volunteer service as they've never been before. Going back specifically to Disney, I was very fortunate I was charged with taking one volunteer program that the company had, which started in 1983 at Disneyland in California. In 1992, I was charged with taking that one program and taking it global. And when I left Disney, we had Disney volunteers in about 50 countries around the world. The way within workplace volunteering is what is the theme. The theme at Disney is really helping children in need. So most of the volunteer activities could be working in children's hospitals, Make-A-Wish, helping wishes come true. But yet at the same time, when you're a very large company with a diverse workforce and the diversity of the communities that you're operating in, what are the issues and things that are important to your employees, important in that community? So you kind of really need to look at each particular area. One, I like to use the 70-30 rule of 70% of your volunteer activities or philanthropy or core to your mission, but then the other 30% you need to look at based on the interests of your people and the needs of the locations, etc. So I think the key to is one, first and foremost, I like to recruit volunteers by making them aware of the need and the impact they can make by their participation. Yes, there's a lot of other incentives of, if you volunteer so many hours, you might have a Dollars for Doers program, which is a grant based on how many hours you serve or all sorts of things like that. Those are all nice recognition pieces, but I would rather get people to serve by making them aware of the issue and how their involvement can help make a positive change.
Jeff, just following, it's that excellent presentation, but
Thank you.
Following up on your thought, another source of untapped volunteerism in this country, which is now starting to come more in the forefront, and I have a club in New York City that's tapped into them, it's organized labor. We have uniformed services in the police and fire department that help us with transportation of equipment that we need.
Right.
And if you go to the electrical unions and the carpenters, there's guys who are named Rizzo and Brennan and O'Brien that lead them, all parochial school boys. And you go to them and you show them that there's a convent that needs wiring